I have been pickpocketed, I have been mugged, I have been scammed. I have never felt so slimy in my life.
En todo caso, nos hubiera comentado y no pasamos a su paciente. ¿Por qué? Porque los costos no sabemos. El doctor es el único que
Pero
sabe.
tú sabes el costo de la sala de emergencia, ¿no?
Cuando, hasta que me dice si estuvo.
Today I want to talk about probably one of the scariest moments in my life and sort of the aftermath of it. I don't know exactly how to tell this story, so I'm just going to jump into it. Deborah and I are working at a hotel, and they gave us pretty much all the food and drinks that we could possibly ever want. All we have to do is film it. One night, as I was taking photos of the food, it was just laid out next to the pool. Basically, the pool is on the bottom floor, but it's surrounded by the rooms, and we're staying up on the third floor up here. And I'm just taking photos, and Deborah from the third floor screams, "Christian!" And I hear Maeva screaming. When your child screams, it's just like, it's not like she was screaming super loud, but it was just like, I couldn't hear anything else. I ran up, I was in my flip-flops, I know. I remember thinking I'm gonna trip and fall and end up in the pool or something. I ran up and I saw she had blood streaming down her face, a huge gash in her forehead. And at the time I had no idea what happened. Deborah and Malaya have different stories of what happened. Malaya says that they were playing and she tripped and fell and hit her head on the bed. But Deborah says that Maeva was standing on something and Malaya ripped it from underneath her feet and she fell and hit her head. I knew that she needed stitches. I saw the size of the gash. It was big enough and it was very deep. And so I knew I had to get her to the hospital. My debit card wasn't working. It was working to pay for things, but for some reason it wouldn't work at the ATM. We were out of cash. We had been paying for everything with a debit card, but in order to take a taxi to the hospital that's, 30-minute walk away, I was gonna need cash and I didn't have any. So I in a panic, I was holding Maeve in one arm, blood-soaked shirt, blood streaming down her face. And in the other hand, I had Google Maps open and I was thinking, okay, where's the nearest hospital? There was one about a 7-minute walk around the corner.
I don't know if there's any good reason for me to video right now except to remember this. I don't know what happened, Maeva. You got a big gash in your head. I wasn't there. I was downstairs. There's a hospital. It's a 7-minute walk away from our hotel, but it looks kind of sketchy. I don't know. You seem like you're feeling okay, but the gash is pretty deep.
She was very quiet after she was done screaming, and at the time I didn't know if that was like, I couldn't even remember like what's her normal personality. Is she supposed to be quiet?
I don't know. Is this the hospital? Urgencias. Must be it.
The doctor confirmed, yes, she will probably need stitches. We'll put her into the emergency room. And then, of course, their billing person comes out and says, we're speaking Spanish. She eases into it, tries to make sure that I understand everything. Of course, we're going to need some money up front because this procedure, this, that, and the other thing, we don't quite know what's going to happen. And says something about need to be sure that whoever it is can pay for it. And I said, yes, of course, I know that it'll need to be paid for. I have no problem with that. And then she says, okay, good, we need a deposit of $2,000. I don't remember what I said after that, but I remember thinking, and I did say at some point, $2,000 is way too much. I mean, I don't know, we went back and forth and I asked like 3 people around the room, like $2,000? $2,000? That sounds like that's way too much. Why would you need a deposit of $2,000? $2,000 is just the standard deposit. We take $2,000 from everybody who comes into the emergency room. We can take what we need and we give a refund at the end. I totally understand the whole thing, but at the time I remember thinking, $2,000 for a couple of stitches is way too much. She talked me down. She didn't say, but she gave the impression that it was going to be much less than that for a minor procedure like stitches. And that she said like they handle broken bones and they handle all sorts of stuff, right? They handle pretty much everything, and $2,000 US is the standard deposit that they take for everybody. I asked for a price list. I didn't know exactly how much it was going to cost, but I can certainly look up the prices of a few stitches, of the time in the emergency room if there's a fee associated with that, what the prices are like before I get into here. And here's my sticking point. The price that I paid isn't the problem. They can charge whatever they want. I asked for a price list repeatedly, probably 5, 6, 7 times. They said that no such list exists. They give their reasons, something like, we don't know what we need before it happens. I was getting ready to walk out the door. My daughter's head is bleeding. Sounds a lot like extortion. And I was getting ready to walk out the door, and they said, yeah, okay, here's what we'll do. If you go in now, we will give you the prices up front of everything that happens as it happens. You can decide whether you want them, yes or no. Also, we will take $500 off of the deposit. It'll only be $1,500. Okay, I can do that. I think that sounds fair. And at the time, I remember thinking, if it's too expensive, I will leave and go to the public hospital. And so one of the really important things that they said at the beginning is that the deposit is a hold on your account and not a charge. So they hold your account, then they charge you later by finalizing and reducing the entire charge to what your bill is. Right off the bat, they've promised me that they're going to tell me the prices, things go as they go. They've promised me that this is a hold and not a charge. At first they said $2,000. I went in and I asked them, I said, can I be charged in pesos, please? And they're like, no, sorry, we don't do that. And I said, oh, why not? No, it's just the policy of the hospital. I was sort of gripped with this fear that something else was going to happen to my daughter. Oh, man. I can't tell you how much this felt like extortion. They say they need $2,000. They tell me, you know, of course she's going to need stitches, and then they're like, and then they're saying she could have a head injury, she could start vomiting anytime, she could do this, she could do that, blah, blah, blah. They're basically trying to instill this fear in me that I have to be here right now and that I have to pay their price, whatever it is. So they lied to get me into the emergency room. The entire thing felt like a setup. It felt like they were everything they said was geared towards taking my money. As soon as they had the $1,500 deposit from my debit card, which was not a hold, it was a charge, they took me into the emergency room, into the back room, where I got a completely new set of staff. This new set of staff had no idea what I'd been promised, couldn't answer any of the questions that I gave them. I asked them over and over and over again, what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there, what's happening in the background, how much is this going to cost, how much is that going to cost, etc., etc. They could not answer a single question. Nothing. I don't blame them. It's not part of their job. They're like nurses who come in to clean up the mess, but they didn't know anything about what the billing department had promised me already. There was no communication between the front staff and the back staff, and I don't think that the front staff who lured me into this scenario really cared. Maeva's procedure was pretty straightforward, like I expected it would be. They cleaned her up. We took her out of her bloody clothes.
Can I have a kiss? Kisses?
Uh-oh, what happened? Everything was pretty straightforward, and then this new doctor comes in that I had never seen before. I don't know why they brought in another doctor when they already had one there. And he said, oh, we probably don't need stitches. What we'll do is we'll get glue first. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we will do the stitches. It turns out that new doctor was a specialist who was on call for this, and they brought in. That's part of the story later. But he came in, he did the procedure, he was perfectly professional, everybody was really friendly, and the process was reasonably easy. I would say it was pretty much run-of-the-mill gash and glue. I waited in the emergency room for like an hour probably, but the procedure itself was only like 10 minutes. Maeva's great. They glue her little head together, put a few bandages on it. She's adorable because she keeps trying to take off her bandages.
Well done, Chiquita. Oh, no, don't take that off.
I remember thinking to myself, because I had already asked the staff a bunch of questions that they refused to answer. And when we were finished, Maeva was so cute. She was just playing like nothing had happened. It was all perfectly normal to her. And at that point, it's been like 2 hours now, and she's not suffering any really severe head injuries. She's just playing like she always does. She's playing with her little bandage, and she's playing with her new little uniform, her doctor's uniform. Everything's fine. We're fine. She's fine. The glue is holding just fine. The bandages on her head are great.
Okay, so we're at the hospital. We're just waiting to be discharged and figure out how much money we owe. Right, Maeva? We're happy? You got your little glue and yeah? Are you happy? Can I have a kiss? Thank you, Maple.
And then the billing person comes in, who's different than the billing person who met me at the front. I was already terrified for this moment because I was asking questions this whole time and none of the staff could answer my questions. I knew that none of what I'd been promised was being kept. I knew they had not told me a single price of a single thing. I knew that they had brought in somebody new who I'd never seen before. I knew that I'd been waiting in the emergency room for a long period of time, even though there was nobody else there in the hospital. The billing person came. Before she said anything, I peeked at the bill. $1,218. I remember thinking to myself, oh, it's only $218. So my bill came out, it's $1,218. I had been there about an hour, and I argued with the billing person for 2 hours. Now, I understand that she's just a person and just has a job to do and whatever. I don't mean to make her life difficult. When I explained to her, first of all, what I've been promised, what happened during the procedure, she did not understand a single thing, and I didn't really know how to explain it to her, except I kept over and over explaining what happened, what I was promised, and what didn't happen that should have happened. And she just kept responding by explaining to me what a deposit was. I remember saying something to the effect of, "Don't talk to me like that. I know what a deposit is. You don't need to tell me again." I'm serious when I tell you that she told me probably 15 times what a deposit is. I don't think I could take it one more time. Like she just kept describing to me what a deposit is, what a deposit is, what a deposit is, what a deposit is, what a deposit is. It felt so repetitive. It just made me feel crazy. Like I thought she was trying to make me think I was a moron. I don't know that I can properly describe like the frustration and the fear that I felt in that moment, but I was just trying to tell her over and over again, like, I was fed a lie at the front. I asked over and over for more details while I was in the room, and everybody refused to give them to me. And first of all, they said they told me that they didn't have a price list, and yet they also told me that the prices were set. So like over the course of arguing with them, the glue that they charged me for was $348. The first hour in the emergency room was $158. To get the specialist, they brought in a specialist, first of all, without asking me. I don't know exactly what their procedure is, but I asked them all those questions beforehand and they just refused to answer. They basically said, "We can't answer, we have policy, blah, 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 blah." I said, I was promised to know what each thing was going to cost as I went along. And I say, the first thing that you should have told me is that the first hour of the emergency room cost $158. I told her over and over again, that is the only piece of information I needed to know that I shouldn't be here. Because if I were to go to a public hospital, the entire procedure would probably cost that much. I promised my wife that I wouldn't I wouldn't say, you know, America this, America that, or UK this, or UK that. But they kept pushing it while I was there. The doctor did, the billing person did, and then when I eventually talked to the manager of the hospital, he did too. They always say, "Oh, it's the hospital with the highest level in the world. It's the same as whatever country in the world, the United States and Europe and the UK and whatever." And the doctor was like, "I worked in South Africa and the prices are the same as there. The private hospitals there are the same as this one here." And it's just like first of all, in the I don't choose to bring the US into this, but every single hospital has a price list. Even if they're overpriced, they have a price list, and I can know what it's going to be beforehand. You guys refused to give me one. Secondly, you can look up online right now. This entire procedure is about £200 at a private hospital in the UK, and it's free at a public one. This is not an issue of your hospital is so great that it's the same as one in the US or the same as the one in the UK. They told me again and again and again, over and over again, you pay the exact same amount in any private hospital in any country in the world, in any developed country in the world, including the United States and Europe. They named the United States, they named Germany, they named the United Kingdom, they named South Africa, they named Australia specifically. It's the same price as what you'll find in any of those countries in any private hospital. It doesn't take more than a 30-second Google search to know that that's total BS. I demanded to speak to the manager of the hospital, and of course it's like midnight by now, so he's not there. She calls him and asks, you know, what to do in this situation, and he says something like, I'll have a meeting with him. Then he insists that I pay the $1,218 before I get a meeting with him. And I said something like, okay, so first of all, it turns out that this hold on my account this $1,500 is not a hold, it's a charge, and that they have to charge me again in order to give me a refund for the original $1,500. So they're going to charge me $1,218 on my debit card, and then they're going to refund the $1,500, which of course I don't believe for a second, because every single word that's come out of their mouths is a lie, other than the doctor who actually did the procedure. It makes me so angry, this whole thing. This whole thing was just like this big roller coaster of emotions. I went from probably as scared as I've ever been to worried about what was going to happen, to secure, feeling okay, a little bit more settled, to probably among the angriest moments of my life. I have been pickpocketed, I have been mugged, I have been scammed. I have never felt so slimy in my life. But I got a meeting with the hospital, with the manager of the hospital, but on the condition that I paid the $1,218 and they issue the refund for the original $1,500. Honestly, I refused. First of all, I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of me doing what they wanted me to do. And I also had this fear that I was not actually going to get a refund for the $1,500 and they were going to scam me out of $2,700 instead. And third, I thought that there was a better chance that I'd be able to fight the original $1,500 charge versus the $1,218, whether that's with my bank, with the court, with whoever. And I just felt like all this entire thing just welled up and I didn't know what to do. I just exploded.
Oh, well, we had to call in a specialist, and the specialist has their own prices, and it was like, well, you f***ing know what the first hour costs at the emergency room. You know what the f***ing glue costs. You know what the f***ing Advil costs. It's all got a cost. The glue was $348. It's a private hospital, it's this, you know, it's actually quite cheap. And I was like, listen, I've spent 20 years in the US, I've spent however many years in Europe, I've been to Asia, that's not cheap. That's not cheap by anybody's standards. They kept just answering all of my questions with the same thing. The deposit is so that we can charge. You didn't tell me that when I paid the deposit. You told me the deposit was not going to be what I was going to be charged.
I didn't sleep that night. I was waiting for this meeting with the manager of the hospital, who was supposed to meet me at about 9 o'clock in the morning. He acknowledges that his staff told me that I would be able to know the prices of things. He mocks me for believing it. First of all, he acknowledges my version of events, and then he basically says, I'm not going to do anything about it.
Sí, lo que pasa es que cuando usted nos dio el depósito es porque usted estaba consciente que iba a ser un servicio completo. No podemos decirle que si son 158,
pero
o no sé si iba a tardar 5 minutos, 20 minutos.
No, pero no me dijeron eso.
Tuvo 2 horas.
Me dijeron que van a decir los precios antes de hacer cada cosa. Entrar a la sala es $158. Y no lo sabía, no me han dicho.
¿Dónde podríamos hacer el tratamiento? Si no quería, lo hubiéramos hablado.
Yo he explicado que van a decir los precios antes.
Okay. En todo caso, nos hubiera comentado y no pasamos a su paciente. ¿Por qué? Porque los costos no sabemos. El doctor es el único que
sabe. Pero tú sabes el costo de la sala de emergencia, ¿no?
Cuando, hasta que me dice si estuvo.
He goes on to tell about how great his hospital is and how the care is just as good as anything you'll get in the US or the UK or wherever else. And then, of course, when I bring up the fact that in the US, every hospital has a price list, it's suddenly an unfair comparison because they do X, Y, and Z thing. Oh man, it's total garbage. He's a total ass. And I don't really know what to say about that, except that he offered to give me the refund. He goes, I won't charge you the second time. I'll send you an email and you can get the refund for the reduced thing. And then he never sent it to me. Never even sent it to me. So I'm out this $1,500. He's refusing to give me a refund of any kind. They're refusing to do the original thing, which was charge my card and then give me a full refund. And the whole thing is just like... I wish I had a conclusion for this. I don't really, because it didn't happen that long ago. I've disputed the charge with my bank. I have talked to a lawyer, and I'm going to an organization called La Profeco, which is here in Mexico, a government agency that is supposed to handle these sorts of things. Nothing has happened yet, but I am still out $1,500. It's not a whole lot of money, but it is a huge dent, and it throws our plans into a tailspin. I forgot to mention, the manager of the hotel, says a bunch of like really asinine things, like all foreigners have insurance or whatever. He said, it was so dumb. He was just like, well, all foreigners have insurance, don't they? And I said, no, I don't. And then he goes, well, why don't you? So well, I've got insurance in Oregon, and where I live in London, everything is free. You know, and then he said something like, oh, well, all foreigners have insurance. Again, something like that. And I said, yeah, maybe all the foreigners who come here because they came here to pay your prices. And then he pretends like he doesn't know how insurance works. I said, I'm sure you know that insurance, he said something like everybody pays the same amount, you know, and then I said, I'm sure you know that that's not how insurance works. Insurance companies negotiate different prices, and that, you know, what you're charging me right now is probably 4 or 5 times what you charge the actual insurance company if somebody were to come in here with insurance. And then he just, again, goes on about how all foreigners have insurance, because of course they do. Apparently they all have the foresight to not go there, all the ones without insurance. But that's pretty much all I have for today. I know it was depressing and there's no conclusion, but hopefully I'll have an update soon.